Welcome back to History by Lynny. In this video, we're going to be taking a quick look at the love life of Joan of Kent. Joan became the first to use the title of Princess of Wales in the British royal family when she married Edward of Woodstock. She is now also known as the Fair Maid of Kent. Known for her captivating beauty and charm, Joan was married 3 times throughout her life, and each marriage was surrounded by a bit of scandal. Joan was born in 1326. Her father was Edmund of Woodstock, the first Earl of Kent and 6th son of King Edward I of England. Her mother's name was Margaret Wake. When Joan was just 2 years old, her father was executed for treason and she was placed under house arrest along with the rest of her family at Arundel Castle in Sussex. When her half-cousin, Edward III, King of England, took charge, he brought her into the court where she grew up along her other noble cousins and family members. Joan's first marriage happened when she was just 13 years old, after she had been involved in a relationship with Thomas Holland, an English nobleman. 26-year-old Thomas and 13-year-old Joan married without royal consent. For couples of their rank, it was necessary to have approval of a marriage. They kept their marriage a secret, and soon after the marriage, Thomas had to leave on an expedition to France as he was en route to become a military commander. About a year later, in 1341, while Thomas was still away, Joan's family arranged for her to marry William Montague, not knowing she was already involved in a marriage arrangement with Thomas Holland. William was the same age as Joan and the eldest son of the first Earl of Salisbury. Nobody, not even William, had any idea of the secret marriage between Joan and Thomas, and therefore the marriage was arranged and finalized between William and Joan. Thomas Holland, Joan's first husband, didn't return from the battlefields of France until 1348. This is when the marriage was finally revealed. Thomas, eager to reclaim his wife, confessed to the king as well as to the Pope about their secret marriage. He pleaded with them to help with the return of his wife. However, William and the Montagues had different plans and made it far from easy for Thomas. The family held Joan captive and confined her in the home so that she could not testify towards the legitimacy of her secret marriage and in turn not be able to return to Thomas. As Thomas continued to ask Pope Clement VI for help, he finally stepped in and made a decision regarding the marriage that next year. The Pope annulled the marriage between Joan and Montague and ordered Joan and Thomas to get married through the church in a proper wedding ceremony. Joan and Thomas were married for another 11 years, with their marriage ending after the death of Thomas in 1360. Thomas died due to illness. Throughout those 11 years, they appeared to have been incredibly happy and had 5 children together. Less than a year after Thomas's death, Joan began a relationship with the tall and handsome Edward of Woodstock, the Prince of Wales, and heir to the throne. You may now also know him as the Black Prince. Edward was the eldest son of her half-cousin, Edward III, and was around 3 to 4 years younger than Joan. They also married each other without permission from the king or the Pope, but this time it was no secret. As the heir to the throne, Joan wasn't exactly who everyone expected Edward to marry. As heir to the throne, it was expected he marry someone that would bring political power and alliances. Joan was a widow and had no influence or power. News of their marriage made its way to the king, and now the king had to plead to the Pope, Innocent VI, to let them make the marriage legal. Mostly, this was out of concern of the legitimacy of the future heir and to avoid any further scandal. They also had to receive a special dispensation from the Pope due to their close blood relationship. So on October of 1361, the couple married at Windsor in a ceremony fit for a prince and princess. The prince was 31 years old and Joan was around 34. She was described as the most beautiful woman in all the realm of England and wore a red dress with cloth of gold decorated with birds. They lived together in Bordeaux for 9 years and had 2 sons together, Edward and Richard. Edward died at the young age of 5, leaving Richard as future king. Once again, Joan seemed to have been a part of a happy marriage, and they were said to have been madly in love. Edward, in 1367, addressed his wife as "my dearest and truest sweetheart and well-beloved companion." The couple were married for 15 years until Edward fell victim to dysentery at the age of 45 in 1376. Now, although Joan and Edward were said to have been very much in love and had a wonderful marriage, Joan stated in her will, which she made 7 days before her death, that she wanted to be buried next to her first husband, Thomas Holland. My body is to be buried in my chapel at Stanford, near the monument of our late lord and husband, the Earl of Kent. Even though Edward had built her a chapel in the crypt at Canterbury Cathedral, where he was buried, and even had the ceiling of the crypt decorated with carvings of the likeness of her face, Joan's request to be buried beside Thomas Holland, her first love and husband, was honored when she died at the age of 57 in 1385. I hope you enjoyed this short story about the loves of Joan's life and how their marriages came to be. Do you believe she took matters into her own hands when it came to her relationships, in a time when women and even many men of that status didn't have much choice? Thank you so much for watching, and don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel if you want to see more on the Middle Ages and the Renaissance.